Have you ever taken a moment to ask yourself how life has been for you lately? Are things feeling peaceful, or have they been a little sour in ways you didn't expect? Hi, I'm Xavia, and you're listening to the Heal and Grow podcast. Earlier today, I came across a fascinating article that shared a powerful perspective. I believe it's one that can help us feel lighter, more grounded, and more connected to ourselves. It isn't just a feel-good idea. It's a life strategy supported by years of research in positive psychology. So in today's episode, we're going to explore that perspective together, gently and step by step. First, I want to ask you a small question. What would you do if, on a perfectly good day, life suddenly threw a sour lemon at you? Those lemons show up in so many different forms. Maybe it is a relationship ending in a way you never wanted. Maybe it is a job you truly loved suddenly coming to an end. Maybe it is a plan you poured your heart into, falling apart at the very last minute. And in moments like these, most of us end up asking the same questions. How am I supposed to get through this? How do I keep this sadness from swallowing me whole? How do I stay standing when everything feels so bitter? There is a well-known saying I am sure many of you have heard. When life gives you lemons, make lemonade. It sounds simple, and maybe even a little cliché, but behind those words lies a meaningful life philosophy that researchers in positive psychology have explored and developed into a concept they call lemonading. Lemonading means this. When difficulties hit and we are forced to face something painful or uncomfortable, we allow ourselves to feel the sadness and exhaustion. At the same time, we learn how to gently transform that experience into something lighter, softer, and more meaningful. So from the very lemons life throws at us, we can still find a way to add some water, a bit of sugar, maybe some ice, and turn it into a refreshing glass of lemonade for ourselves. Life is always sending us little tests. Have you ever noticed that? Those sour lemons do not show up just once. Sometimes they show up every single day. It happens when you wake up, go to work, and a colleague accidentally says something that gets stuck in your mind. Or when a project you cared about deeply suddenly gets changed at the very last minute by your boss. These things are small, but when they pile up, they make you tired and discouraged, and you start wondering, why can't things just be a little easier? But the truth is, life will never be completely smooth. Life simply does not work that way. If we sit around waiting for everything to become perfect, a day without exhaustion, a person who never hurts our feelings, a job that never gives us problems, then honestly, we might be waiting our whole lives. Because this world is full of things that do not go our way. It does not wait to throw one big crisis at you. Instead, it tests you with tiny drops of sourness, steady, persistent, every single day. So instead of hoping that life suddenly becomes softer, maybe what we actually need is to learn how to be a little softer with ourselves first. Sometimes, we only have one real choice. Either let those tiny lemons ruin our entire day, or learn how to make a little lemonade out of the smallest things. Instead of letting your mood sink because of what happens around you, you can pause for a moment and ask yourself, is there a gentler way for me to look at this? Because often, what exhausts us is not the event itself, but the way we hold on to it for too long. Instead of spending the whole day thinking, Why did they talk to me like that? You could try shifting it to, maybe they are having a rough day too. Instead of being frustrated when your plan gets changed at the last minute, you can ask yourself, is there any chance this change could help me be more creative? Instead of letting one small issue weigh you down all day, you can take a deep breath and remind yourself, is this really more important than my peace of mind? Sometimes, changing just one question is enough to change your entire emotional state. You do not have to turn every difficulty into a victory right away. You just need to turn something bitter into something you can actually swallow. Just make your day 1% less harsh, 1% less heavy, 1% less tangled in tiny frustrations, and that alone can make life feel so much lighter. You do not need to turn failure into success immediately. You just need to turn a sour lemon into a drinkable glass of lemonade. Just make your life a little easier to breathe. That, in itself, is already lemonading. Because sometimes, what brings us peace is not the big problems being solved, but the small things viewed with a softer heart. Let me tell you a little story. One that comes back to me every time I talk about lemonading. It happened on a day when I was completely exhausted. You know the kind of day I mean, right? A morning full of deadlines, an afternoon packed with meetings, and by the time you get home, all you want is a few minutes of silence and a long, deep breath. The moment I opened the door, my child ran toward me, hugging my leg with teary eyes and a trembling voice. "Mom, I broke your favorite cup." And just like he said, there it was, on the floor, shattered into pieces, the cup I used every night to make a little tea. A small ritual that helped me reset my mind at the end of the day. Honestly, in that moment, all I wanted to do was drop my bag, sit on the floor, and say, "Oh my goodness, can this day get any worse?" I was tired. Really tired. Not because of the cup, but because the whole day had already been full of little moments of sourness. But then I looked at my child, standing there, with those big, worried eyes, scared that I would be upset. And somehow, I knew I had to choose something different. I sat down, pulled him into my arms, and said gently, "It's okay, sweetheart. We can always buy another cup. I'm just glad you're not hurt." He hugged me even tighter and stopped crying almost instantly. That night, after he fell asleep, I finally had a quiet moment to sit with my thoughts. And that is when I realized something. If I had let my exhaustion decide my reaction, I would have missed the chance to teach my child about calmness and love. The broken cup made me sad for maybe 5 minutes. But choosing softness, choosing to hug my child instead of scolding him, made me proud of myself for the entire week. And it was in that moment that I began to understand lemonading in a completely different way. Lemonading is not about turning a broken cup into joy. It is about turning a bitter moment into a moment of connection. It is turning a small accident into a meaningful lesson. It is transforming a knee-jerk reaction into an act of kindness. I still remember the sentence I whispered to myself that night. Motherhood is not sweet all the time, but every day I get to choose. Will I let the sourness sting my eyes? Or will I make myself a gentler glass of lemonade? And strangely enough, ever since that moment, I have started seeing life much more lightly. Because every time life throws me a lemon, big or small, I think back to the image of my child hugging my leg, and I know I can always choose to flavor that moment differently. Maybe all of us are learning how to make lemonade in our own way. No one is perfect, but when we soften a little each day and understand ourselves a little more, life naturally becomes lighter and easier to breathe. And if those sour lemons are something we cannot avoid, then at the very least, we can choose the flavor we want for our own glass of lemonade. I'm genuinely curious. Was there a small moment today that annoyed you at first, but now that you think about it, feels a little bit endearing? If you feel comfortable, share it with me in the comments. Your story might be exactly the reminder someone else needs to feel a little better tonight. Thank you for spending your evening with me. I truly appreciate your presence. Wishing you a gentle night's rest and the sweetest dreams. I'll meet you again in the next episodes of the Heal and Grow podcast. And if you'd like something soothing to listen to before you sleep, feel free to click on the playlist. There are many heartfelt episodes waiting for you there.